Welcome back to the European Challenger Series Summer Split. There's only a couple minutes to go before Gamers 2 and Mousesports hit the Rift. And with their adjusted team rosters, both teams are looking like real threats now, Stress.
Oh, they really are. I'm super happy to be casting this game. When you come to this, I'm really looking forward to seeing how these two teams match up.
Yeah, me too, Stress. So let's not waste any time. Let's get to the lineups with Gamers 2. It is Smitty J in the top lane, Gillis in the jungle, Perks the newer mid lane in the mid lane, Jesse in the AD carry role, formerly known as Jeziz, and Heaver as his support.
Yes, and we actually have some unfortunate news for Mouse fans. So Mousesports were unable to field a full roster in time and therefore will lose their bans for this game. However, they were offered the option of fielding an emergency substitute and have accepted. So that means their lineup for this game will be Beansu in the top lane, Dan in the jungle, Sayo in the mid lane, the change in AD carry of Iniro coming in, and Mountain being the support. So there is a change to the Mouse lineup. We'll see it's quite clearly going to affect the Mouse lineup here.
Yeah, it's pretty big, and we'll touch on that one later, Stress, because I kind of want to look at the compositions and the teams as a whole, because coming out of the first week, did the teams just play the bottom of the pack? And is that what influenced their results? And will this game illuminate that? Because these are the two teams which play the bottom of the table and are now facing each other. So the winner of here will clearly be the one who's above the other.
Yeah, so we were going back and forth on this discussion, and I feel like when you come to Gamers 2, they're in a position that they've been in before. This time, I think it's a little better than last time. Perks and Jesse being added to the roster so far have been really good additions. It's unfortunate today that Cedrian won't be joining the Mouse lineup. He's one of the players that we were really looking at with Mouse's improvements. So there's still a lot of questions overall. But Cedrian was with the team yesterday. But speaking of yesterday, Gamers 2's lineup in that setup, they were running something actually fairly similar to what we were seeing out of Origin and H2K in last week's LCS. So it was a very interesting game when it comes to it.
Yeah, they were running a poke composition with the AP in the top lane. It was interesting to actually see them pick that up and kind of see how the strategy is filtered down into Challenger. But the game starts up with first blood for Perks, which basically just set him up to be the key player for Gamers 2, as you'll see as this game progresses.
It really did. And Mouse actually had the lead in objectives and were looking for a second, but Gamers 2 were punishing the attempt at a second dragon here and managed to take that second dragon of the game for themselves.
Flash slam for the kill there, but Mouse did identify the major threat in Gamers 2, being Perks, but they tunnel vision on him so hard and commit so many resources that Gamers 2 just punished the mistake.
Yeah, punishment after punishment. Small fights in the lead up, just really not enough for Gamers 2 to take the lead. Mouse constantly just chipping away at the objective control. You can see 27 minutes in the game, still 2 dragons and a tower lead for themselves.
And finally, we get to the stage where Perks has so much damage he can start stopping fights before they begin, but then he just really wants Raptors and then uses his entire skill set on them and kind of leaves his team out to dry. There's the to the skies, there's the thundering blow. Oh, I have no way to knock back the enemy team. See you guys, I'm out of here.
And the unfortunate thing for the rest of Gamers 2 is Perks actually escapes this. That's a little bit of a scumbag move by Perks. Sets himself up, gets caught, and isn't able to get away. But what this leads to is 8 more minutes later into the game, a 4th dragon in the bank following that fight, and the Baron buff means that Gamers 2 are stuck in their base under the threat of the engage from Mouse. And honestly, at this point, Sayo's Azir, 3-1 of 5 at this point, just was able to put so much damage down in front of the inhibitor, along with the Sivir, just meant that Mouse could kind of readjust in the fight, add extra damage. You can see the echo.
The order is given.
Yeah, the order is given, and the parallel convergence did lock there, and Mouse were able to take this game for themselves. Yesterday, continuing the impressive start for themselves.
Yeah, pretty much every player on that team did well, but we had some players to specifically highlight. Dan picking up the Echo as well, just showing that he has a wide champion pool. His 3rd new pick of the split so far, 6, 2, and 9 on that champion.
Yeah, he was looking pretty good, as you said. Adding to that champion pool, another player who kind of had a great game. We mentioned him just at the end there, Sayo, on that Azir. 4, 1, and 9 overall in that game. Looking pretty sharp.
deceptive because of how much damage he dealt. He was only second to Perks, who was on Jace, who was 2-2 and 4, but it was really about how much he did for his team in stopping some fights, apart from the one at Raptors.
Yeah.
But also just how much damage he dealt in that game to just poke down and kind of stall out the game for his team to potentially come back into the game.
Right, yeah, and really just Perks was such a big part of the Gamers 2 lineup, and when you now factor in that Gamers 2 have their full roster, MOUs do not have their full roster, Cedrian has been the big carry for MOUs in the last couple of games, and if they don't have a carry to kind of offset Perks, yes, they're in two different lanes, but still the dynamic when it comes to how their team setup is a really tricky one now for MOUs to take.
But this is also very interesting in this game, because if Gamers 2 come back into this because of the potential swap up, because there's a lot of synergy in the bottom lane, right? Cedric and Mountain being together for such a long time, taking out of that AD carry, who's been a major factor for them, and subbing in someone entirely new at the last minute, will give Gamers 2 a significant advantage. And with them being at the middle of the table, a win here could really start elevating them up and give them a chance at playoffs.
Yeah, I think they'd be the first team to go 1-1 as well. So it'd be, it would be a good start to the campaign now in the second week. So I'm interested to see how it goes. But certainly strange things happen when MOUs and Gamers 2 meet each other. If you remember, pretty sure it was MOUs and Gamers 2 in Spring Split that was the infamous set of Teemo Gangplank games.
Indeed it was, yes.
Let's hope that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, it was an entirely different set of events that led up to that. Unfortunate events, you could say.
True. And these seem like very different teams now.
Yeah, that's true. But unfortunate events is what happened to MOUs.
True.
So we'll see. We'll see.
I'm gonna. I can only expect
until it happens.
Yeah, I full well expect MOUs to just kind of come out all guns blazing on Seo in this setup here. Yeah. Because if they can shut down Perks, there's still the chance that this game can go in their favor. Like, I'm not counting them out completely.
No, not at all. I mean, they already have 3 wins coming in. That's already better than how they did in spring, as they had 2 wins and many losses as they went to the end of the split, and there was kind of no hope for them as they got to that point. Now, between the seasons, they change up the roster. Now they're looking significantly better. Now at the top of the table, in fact, with Team Dignitas.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just need to carry on picking up some wins. I guess the ongoing question for me is, which teams can they pick up wins against? Because they look good, but I wouldn't put them in the same category as Team Dignitas, despite them sharing the first spot with them.
I'd be interested to see a lot of the matchups. Yeah. Thanks, Pulse.
No problem.
I'd be interested to see some of the matchups, for instance, against Denial, where we can see whether they actually match up against Denial, who are back on the track that what they were kind of expected on. Nobody expected MOUs to be on a track to the top of the standings. After week one, I think. Yeah. After week one, they certainly put a lot of those people, or put a lot of those questions to rest. So, I want to see what they can do with a full lineup, but unfortunately we're not going to see it in this game yet. We are, just so you guys are aware, we are currently in a pause in the game, so we're not able to quite get into game just yet. So that's why you're stuck with us, unfortunately.
Yep. Very true. But moving on to the patch as well, we kind of mentioned it in the first game, 5.12, lots of changes in terms of the towers. We're kind of just shifting in a direction. It wasn't like a huge patch that just changed everything, but slight echo changes, Rise as well, some Ash changes, which Doublelift has been vocal about. But it's interesting because we're moving in this direction where, at least in the LCS and in the upper echelons of play around the world, we're seeing a lot of poke compositions.
Yeah.
Like Jace is a thing. Now Ezreal with the Runeglaive, we mentioned it at the start of the show. Haven't seen any Ezreal, has not been banned, has not been picked, not even thought about, didn't see it yesterday either.
I really wonder with this topic of whether it's to do with the teams and how they want to play, rather than kind of like the level of teams. I still feel like we're seeing out of Challenger teams, we saw out of, I believe it was Gamers 2 yesterday, we saw the poke come out. Yep. We may very well see the same again. But nobody's really adopting things all that quick. As of yet. We're only a couple of days into the patch. This is the first competitive games. I'm expecting to see a lot more of that in the LCS rather than here in Challenger, but certainly we've had a lack of poke when it comes to it. We're not seeing the full poke setups that we have seen. Even on 5.11, from LCS, which is a really weird one because it's not even like it's particularly new to 512. There were some tweaks, but that was it.
It's very true. And there's a lot of players in Challenger where poke champions would suit them very well, but just haven't gone for it just yet. Again, the carry top lanes, we're seeing a lot of Rumble being played recently. Departure from the tanks may go back to it with 512, we'll see. But we did see the Aurelia today from Kubon. It's kind of a Kubon staple, though. Likewise, Wicked. A Wicked staple.
We've got a lot of Aurelia players here in Challenger.
We do. I wonder if it's whether because of the patch or just because they are Aurelia players.
I feel like it's a little of both. The tower changes, plus the fact that people are just likely to pick Aurelia here with regards to their favored champions in Challenger. So there's certainly a lot of questions being raised on that of what is strong up in that top lane role, but we've seen a little bit of a fall of the tank meta for top laners. Yeah,
a fall of the tank meta. We'll see if they come back up again. But we are finally into Champion Select. The issues have been somewhat resolved. So let's take a look at those couple banned champions that Gamers 2 will be bringing out. Echo comes out against Dan. Did not want to play against that after his last performance. So just taking that one off the board. But it's just interesting that Dan is pulling bans despite his champion pool being so large.
Yeah, I mean, he pulled bans from Gamers 2 yesterday when I take a look at it. Actually, Zach was banned from Gamers 2 yesterday. Zach, Rek'Sai, Kalista were Gamers 2's bans. For the Mouse side, Nidalee, Alistair Vayne were the bans in yesterday's game. So Echo, as you said, is a new one for this series. Also, I wonder whether Mouse are going to look to ban 80 carries here. Oh, they don't have any bans. That's... oh, you got me. You got me. They don't have any bans.
Spending a lot of time on this
so
one.
Mouse, as we said, emergency substitute comes in. They don't have any bans for this game. So jungle seems to be the priority. That Gamers 2 are probably going to first pick Gragas, I would imagine, in this kind of setup. When you know you can ban everything else and leave all the 80 carries, everything else open, why not? Ban Kalista last, maybe, then you basically force Sivir Corki out onto the Rift, maybe? I don't know, just kind of thinking of ideas. There's a lot of time where Maos aren't banning.
It's true. Fresh will be the final ban up against Mountain. You spoke about a lot of Aurelia players. We have a lot of Fresh players as well. Mountain's pretty good at that champion. Nisbet as well. Hiva, just like things like Annie, other type of champions. Alistair as well. Also likes going into the enemy jungle and 1v5ing and dying. But apart from that, has generally had a pretty good run. But he even knows I'm joking. But yeah, just waiting on his first pick from Beansu right now.
Ruthless today, Pulse.
I know, man. I'm getting jittery because we haven't had a game for a while.
Is it the sun? Is that what's happening? Like,
no, it was the salty pick from Senkooks. Just made me super salty, I guess. But there you go. First pick in from Smitty J is the Sivir. Kalista is still on the board, though. Kalista is being hovered over by Mouse.
So this is an interesting one. You ban 2 junglers. You know you have priority over the picks. You know they can't ban the 3rd junglers, and you don't pick it is an interesting one. Then you pick Sivir, which is available when the other tier 180 carry is up. Interesting picks and ban strategy, to say the least. So... Gamers, that's a really weird one for me. Like, why ban 2 junglers if you're not going to first pick the first? Because realistically, Mouse right here should just take the Gragas. I mean, I know Dan isn't a particularly big Gragas player, but certainly it's been tier 1 long enough that you pretty much would expect it. And it's a clear tell that Gamers 2 are going to pick it up in the next rotation.
Maybe Gamers 2 see something that we do not stress. I wonder if that's the case. Don't need to prioritize the Kalista just yet, though, as ID carry has already been picked up. Just showing that they can play it. But Lee Sin will be picked up by Dan. Yet another jungler coming in, unless they throw it into a different name, but presumably on Dan this game. And then Alistair for support.
Dan's a Lee player anyway, so I kind of expect...
He plays everything.
I expect him to go early game, but Lee is, while it's still a strong and jungler that certainly is in the meta, I don't feel like it's worthy to pick over Gragas. Now, we haven't seen the 512 patch settle yet. The games we have seen, Rek'Sai and Gragas are still tier 1 from the jungle, so, anecdotal evidence doesn't really go away from what is the norm. But that is an interesting one out from Dan. This is going to kind of force Mouse to play more of a pick style more than anything when you look at it. You look at what Kikis did with Lee Sin with the Unicorns of Love. Very difficult to transition a lead with Lee into a win, especially against poke compositions.
Well, the early game is so important.
That's a karma.
That is a karma. Okay, so Karma a couple patches ago did get a little damage shaved off her Soul Flare, which does a lot of damage. I don't think we're going to be seeing it in mid lane. The changes were basically to put him more in a support role. Yeah,
I'm expecting this to be support Karma, which I feel like... Again, it's another pick that we were talking about. This is so weird how today's picks and bans are gone. We were talking about Karma in the office today with Deficio and about whether it's a viable support, believe it or not. This is in the Braum discussion. And he was talking about how, you know, when you're running poke compositions, it acts as another form of disengage where you pop the ultimate with the Defiance, with the shield for Inspire. You run away super quick. You have poke yourself. You don't have reliable crowd control, though. You have to have the tether land. The Q, if you don't use the ultimate on it, is very small for a slow, so it's a weird one. There were certainly mixed ideas about it when we were talking about it earlier. But Mouse, as you said, that's an Ashe being locked in. You did have a change. A slight nerf was the consider. It's now more difficult to activate your Q.
Correct.
In lane. You have to stack it 2 or 3 times without using abilities.
Yeah, TLDR, you can't just volley a minion wave and instantly get access to your damage. Now you actually have to just hit people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's been picked away here. They do not go for the Callista, which is the interesting thing. Azir has been taken away by Sayo. Had a great run with it yesterday. Lots of orders were being given. And then on Gamers 2, Jace has been picked up with the AP threat in the top lane. So this is exactly what you were talking about with the H2K type lineups, even Origin as well. So Gamers 2 are adapting to the LCS meta that's been coming in.
Yeah.
Mouse, however, hovering Callista, I assume it's not going to be a Callista.
I'm assuming it's not. They've already got the Ashe. As you said, this is very similar to what Gamers 2 were running yesterday. Now they're mixing in a slightly different support. I quite like it. General thoughts, very similar to the Braum game, is Janna, if you're looking at a support for disengage, is kind of queen of the mountain when it comes to it. There's no real way of disengaging any better than a Janna, especially when you're running a Gragas. That's a Galio locked in.
All right, let's go.
Okay, so Galio has been played in LCK, I believe it was by Incredible Miracle, and I believe they lost that game. We don't see Galio all that often. The ones that stick out in my mind, SK Gaming played support Galio all the way back. I think it may have even been 2014. This is going to be a Galio top because you wouldn't pick Galio into Jace because that's suicide. You just, melee into range, MR into AD. So that has to be a top lane Galio. I mean, Galio needs a flank. If you can teleport in behind people and run in and ult behind them.
Well, let's look at Galio right now, because we are on 5-12. There was a buff to him.
There was.
Basically, what the buff was, more times he gets hit, the more damage he does. Basically, rewards him for full ultimates. The change before that was that Tenacity, his ultimate, is not affected by it. So if you run in, then you're always going to get the max duration. You can't just walk out because I bought Merc Treads. So that's a pretty significant change. So as long as you aren't running Xin Zhao, who just activates Q before he goes into the Galio ult, then you'll never really get disrupted. But there are still things on Gamers 2 which can disrupt him from long range, such as the Gragas ultimate. So
it is only the Gragas ult, though. It is only the Gragas ult that will disrupt it.
But Jace also has cleanse, so he can cleanse and then
Thundering Blow. Okay, that is the other thing, because
he has to expend a summoner.
He has to expend a summoner, and he has to then get close enough to Thundering Blow, which means he'll be in damage range when it explodes anyway. So
by the way, guys, we do have a prolonged pause in game. Mals are actually still paused, so we are just waiting on that one. But luckily, there is a lot to think about between these team compositions.
There is. I mean, at least they gave us something interesting.
I know, right?
I want to pause. So yeah, Galio is a champion that every time he has a buff or a change, everyone's like, yeah, why is Galio not played? And then you remember he's typically a mid lane champion who's a melee champion that needs MR to scale, where you've got to spend a lot of time getting itemization, put points into abilities that don't deal a lot of damage itself. And then his Q is really frustrating to hit. Short range, travels at a moderate speed, but is avoidable.
Yep.
And it's only if you hit it on multiple people that it really does a lot. So that's the kind of the TLDR on why we don't see Galio too much. It's just very difficult to set up his ult as well. Like I've kind of been anticipating Galio Kalista lanes for a while, but that's not what we're seeing here.
Well, while we have a little bit of time, remember to head over to Twitter and use those hashtags G2win or MOUwin. Tweet at LOL Esports, and we'll be checking in with your opinions as we get into game. When we get into game as well. That's the other thing. But yeah, so Galio, we've kind of talked a lot about him. It's kind of like the MOU effect, where it's just like, I'm back, and then doesn't.
Yeah, so it's a weird one because it's on Binsu. Binsu's another player that I kind of expect to pick stuff like Irelia.
Irelia, yeah.
Because Binsu likes... Yeah, exactly. We've got so many Irelia players here in Challenger.
I'm an Irelia player.
Binsu, you're a Riven player right now.
Right now,
yeah. You can't try and disguise yourself as an Irelia player.
I used to be.
You used to be. Then you've turned to a Riven main and one of those people.
Forced to play Maokai. Anyway.
In this setup, though, I actually find myself saying I don't mind the Galio so much. Like, we're seeing very kind of unique champion picks by certain teams that fulfill different requirements within a game. Like, for instance, casting mine back to Giants this week in the LCS, they ran the Wukong jungle. I actually didn't mind the Wukong jungle. It was just the execution wasn't particularly amazing. Like, Wukong is one of the best champions for crowd control with his ultimate, in the sense that you just ult and anybody near you just gets crowd controlled for quite a long duration. You don't particularly have to engage on people. If they engage on you, it's great counter engage. No point can you really engage on a Wukong while his ult is going. Same thing with Galio. No real way to engage on a Galio without hard disengage. And as you said, in this lineup, only really the Gragas is the one that has the hard disengage without using a summoner.
Yeah, and with this poke composition, gamers 2 are always going to be wanting to kite back, and Galio will stop in the way of that. But he's always going to either need the flank, like you talked about, or have the flash. But then, if gamers 2 are on top of their game, they have disengage everywhere. They had the disengage with the Gragasol. They had the Defiance from the Karma as well to just run away from the Galio. So it's really going to be important, because if he can land his 5-man ult, that's basically a one-team fight. Because that's like, what, 2-3 seconds of Sire waiting on you with the soldiers.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to land a 5-man ult.
I don't think so either.
If he lands a 5-man ult against a Sivir and a Karma, who both basically have a Sivir ultimate in their kit. That's what the Mantrid Inspire is, where you just get that massive shield on everybody around you and you kind of run super fast. If you get a Galio ult on 5 people with those two things, something has gone horribly wrong in the setup. But G2 have a lot of, as we said, poke potential, chase potential. They have disengage. They have good team fight setup when it comes to it. It's just going to be dependent on whether Binsu can actually teleport himself into the back of a fight, because then they have a lot of zone control coming out from Galio, from the Alistair, from the Azir as well to disengage. And of course they've got the engage potential with the ult coming from Ashe too. But speaking of Ashe, it's actually Inero that is having connection problems. So we're trying to get him back into the game and trying to resolve his issues as fast as we can.
That's pretty unlucky, as your AD carry isn't able to make it, and then your new AD carry is then having issues. It's just not working out for Mal so far, but I really want to see their composition in action.
Ashe against Poke.
Yeah, and they had Kalista available. Didn't pick it.
Well, we'll see.
Had the Ashe as well, but we're about to get in-game, so enough of our talking. Well, we're going to carry on talking, but enough of our faces
what we're here to do,
with the talking. Alright, we're gonna get in game anyway. Gamers 2 and Mousesports into this one, the second game between these two teams over the last couple of days, and the final game of week 2. And everyone is heading out of the base from Mouse in a clump.
So I want to kind of go back to that point we were just about to touch on with the Ashe into Poke. So Poke is kind of undone by hard engage. Ashe provides good engage, which is the benefits of having Ashe against this composition. Ashe is very low mobility as an AD carry, and therefore is going to have dancing shoes on to avoid all the poke. Because once Shock Blast lands onto an Ashe, you are out of the fight. You have to just completely retreat back, and there is almost nothing you can do in that situation.
Lots of pings going down from both teams. Question of where the vision is going down. Mouse have gone into the opposing jungle, placed down their single ward. Meanwhile, Gamers 2 have headed into the top side of the map, and Mouse all camped in this tiny pixel brush in the river. Smitty J, Jesse, and Gilius. Just a question of maybe potentially getting caught out. Mountain, Beansuit leading the charge here. The recalls are coming in from Gamers too. They're going to see Mountain as he gets out of the bush. The flash into the free-man knockup. This could very well be First Blood, and it's going to be a lot of kills going down. First Blood over to the Ash, though, onto a Nero, and Smitty J is now under attack. A good Resolute Smite onto Heaver and Jesse, but now here comes the Jace as well onto a Nero. He's just standing there trying to put down as much damage as he can onto Smitty, and that will be a 1-for-1 overall. A bunch of summoners burnt.
Yeah, a lot of summoners burnt. G2 showed themselves in the top side of the map on the way into that. I want to go all the way back, and then we'll get to the Ash at the end. That flash pulverize out of Mountain was about as fast as you could get it onto multiple people. It was a good setup for Mouse in the end. So the Ash, I'm going to say it, in Arrow was disconnected at that point. A little bit tricky. I'm assuming that was, you know, where the pause came from in that situation. So in Arrow, it's unfortunate. He get a kill for himself, though. So that's just Mouse having an unfortunate start to this game.
All right.
Unfortunate. They got First Blood.
Yeah, so it didn't work out that awfully for them. Junglers doing jungling, taking their buffs. Bot lane in Nero and Mountain. Very interested in seeing how this lane will work out, since we've seen so much of Cedric and Mountain. Seems like never seen that pair apart, but this time, the one day it happens. Heaver, Jesse, hint here with the Karma coming around with the Spell Thief's Edge, which makes a lot of sense, considering you're just going to be poking, as Heaver is doing currently. You
raise a good question about the Cedric and Mountain setup. Because now we get to answer the question, is it Cedric or is it Mountain? Or is it both of them? We'll have to find
the ladder.
Ooh.
Or the tertiary, rather, in this one.
But Heaver, on this Karma, we don't see it all that often. Tried to lock the chains down there with that level 2 advantage that they had, but actually took so much damage in exchange for it. Got damage down to an Arrow, but an Arrow is struggling. 13 CS to 4 after that first kill.
Yeah, Mountain, and it feels so weird saying Mountain and not Cedric. Mountain and Inero in the bottom lane. Top lane, though, it is Beansu and Smitty J. It's Galio versus Rumble matchup, and there's not a lot of damage going on to Beansu, actually, with the bulwark coming up. It means that the overtime Flame Spitter damage will generally be mitigated for the first couple of ticks, as every tick will just give Galio more health with bulwark.
Yeah, and I mean, like, let's look at this as Dan actually heads up into the top lane. We'll see whether he can connect with the Q, as Beansu's slowly making his way there.
There's some punches. There's a Q. There's Gilius looking for the counter engage. Comes in with a flash body slam onto Beansu and will punch him down. Drunk him under the table.
So you can see exactly how difficult it is to land any kind of crowd control coming from Galio. One thing I was going to say about the Galio lane is it shouldn't end up being all that bad against Beansu. I mean, they're both melee range at that point. Then you can start landing the Resolute Smite coming out from Galio. Ooh, mid lane, Heaver flashes.
Sayo is on his way out, but Heaver keeps him in place with the lockdown, and Perks will just follow up with a very easy shot blast through the acceleration gate and get another kill. 3-1 in this game.
And G2 seem to be emulating the LCS teams fairly well. That's the same kind of roam that you'd expect to see out of an LCS jungler, out of an LCS support player. Going to that mid lane to make sure you can help out. Got the Karma across the map after getting boots earlier on. So it's a good start for Gamers 2 right now.
Yeah, Heaver is always a playmaking support, though. He does roam a lot in the early game and during the mid game as well. Sometimes gets into precarious positions, but usually is the one to make the plays. Bot lane, Mountain is zoning away Jesse while his support is AWOL. And just allowing Inero to farm up with the Ashe. Mountain is just healing up. Just doing that in the bottom lane. But yeah, Ashe into this composition as well, as you were mentioning, will be able to initiate hard onto Gamers 2 if they do get locked into that poke scenario around an objective. Gilius in the top side of the map has been warded up, so Beansu will be safe from this one. And eventually, Heaver has found his way back into the bottom lane.
Yeah, I'm still intrigued about this Galio. I swear I'm in the weird kind of Twilight Zone today. 3 champions that never really get played have been played today, that we talked about today as well. So this time, bottom lane, Hiva's going to pop that shield on himself.
Has the tether down, does get the stun as well. Jesse comes in with the boomerang blade, flashes after. He's now getting all this aggro from the minions. Nero will turn around, gets the volley down with the frost shot, has the small amount of slow, looking for the ranger's focus, but doesn't have the mana for it. And Jesse will get out of there, and Mountain somehow managed to survive after all of that.
Just hangs on with his health. Mid lane, though.
Oh, Sayo gets the shield from the E. Perks will have to jump after him, though. Get some damage down with his combo. And Sayo will be safe for now. Also had Gilius waiting in the wings. Dan is now here, ready to gank Perks, looking for the follow-up. Sayo gets the shield once again. Is it enough to keep him alive? The flash body slap from Gilius says no, and Dan will be backing away towards his turret. Cuts off that escape route with the equalizer, and Smitty J looking for the flame spitter. Eventually gets it down before he overheats, and finds the second kill for the 1 and 2 trade.
No teleport out from Binsu in that situation. Hadn't hit level 6 for his ultimate, so was trying to catch up. Didn't have a read on where Smitty J was completely. And that is just another gank from Dan that goes awry. And it's all from the counter engages that are coming out from Gilius. He's in the right place at the right time to make sure that Dan's ganks are basically non-effective.
Well, Hiva in the bottom lane. It's actually the lane with the substitution that is actually doing pretty well so far. I say pretty well, but Jesse is actually ahead in farm, but they have not given any other kills apart from that 1 kill onto the Ashe at the start of the game. Mountain comes in with a combo onto Hiva. He'll lock him down and give him an inner flame. Dan as well, taking up this ward here in the top side of mid. We'll receive a shock blast, will be warded once again by Perks. Sayo pushing in the middle lane. Fairly even in terms of CS. Perks is going to be slightly ahead with this wave coming in. Has picked up the Brutalizer and the Tear at only 8 minutes into the game, so he's doing pretty well for himself. Sayo will be glad to get this blue buff and try and continue to farm up. I'll take a look at the fan vote. 65% over to Gamers 2. It's significant, but Mouse still looking not too bad in this game. It's only a 1,500 gold advantage despite all of the kills.
That's going to be a tough gold advantage to really do anything about, though, without a good setup on a fight from Binsu with that teleport. Because now that G2 are running poke and they're ahead, it just means once they start getting to about that 2-item kind of level where Jace is going to be able to start putting massive amounts of damage with shock blasts, it's so difficult to really hold on in a game, especially when you've got a top laner that heavily wants to not itemize armor. He so heavily wants to itemize magic resist over anything that it's going to be tough for Mouse to properly itemize against the entirety of the G2 lineup.
Dan now taking up his red buff, just farming through the jungle, will survive that battle to the death with him. Gilius is spending a lot of time in mid lane looking for a gank onto Sayo. And this is also at the point in time where Sayo has Emperor's Divide. He has the barrier as well. The flash is still off cooldown, but Gilius has been seen as he went into the bush and also as he left the bush. So Mouse had the bead on the jungler. Inero and Mountain still in the bottom lane, taking a lot of damage from Hiva. Comes in with the follow-up, trying to get the damage out. Has been ignited as well. Hiva wants blood. He flashes into the turret aggressively into Inero. Takes him out and will walk out with style. Jesse now trading up against Binsu. Tries to get the spell shield down, but will be hit up by the Ador Durand. Mountain just knocks him into the turret, and Jesse knows his fate.
Oh, Mountain got it.
Huh? Oh, because he headbutted him. And Binsu will not get it. That was actually a really heads-up play by Jesse.
Yeah, Jesse making sure the kill goes over to Mountain in that situation. I want to go back to Hiva's play there. That's one of the most aggressive plays we've seen as a support. All he had to do was make sure that he hit the Soul Flare, the powered-up Q, and the slow from that acts kind of akin to an Iceborne Gauntlet proc, where you have that slow field. What that allows you to do is chain it with the focused resolve tether, and then you can follow up the rest of the damage. And that's exactly what Hiva did there. And it's so difficult and so rare that you see a full combo like that come off, just because of how difficult it is to land that the snare.
Hiva is probably the most ham support in Challenger right now. He's always the one who will just go in first, just head first into the opposing team. Whether it costs him his life or not, he'll get that engage.
However, it did end up costing Gamers 2 an objective in the form of the first dragon of the game. Now Jesse is knocked up, but one of the things, actually, the nuances of playing and Alistair in support role right now is just the decision between when to combo and when to separate your crowd control. Again. Wow, that is so much damage onto an arrow. If you can, you want to just kind of never combo offensively, because it's so difficult to actually do anything once that crowd control is expended. You can see an arrow wasn't even really on the same page here in this game, so it's tough for Mountain to engage in this lane matchup and really do all that much without the Ash Arrow.
Yeah, or expend the flash, which only happens once every 5 minutes. Now Jesse and Heaver pushing into the tower. Still have that gold advantage in terms of the CS as well. It's mid lane. Perks is also accumulating a gold advantage, now 98 CS, approaching on the 100 mark, over 76 from Sayo. Again, the burst is coming out. Mountain this time just land the combo onto Jesse. Gets the tower shots, 2 onto him this time. Another focus resolve will pin him in place as he was continuing to land the skill shots. Perks now coming into the bottom lane, armed with a lot of damage. Inero and Mountain still staying around this turret. Had found him with the blue trinket, but maybe a little too late. Dan is here to counter-engage though, looking for this Q to land. Does not connect it onto Perks. He'll go through that acceleration gain, try and get onto the bot lane escapees. Does not quite get there though. Gilius was also coming in for some of the fun, but we'll have to back away. This will be at least the bottom turret going over to game 2 for that aggression.
Yeah, bottom turret goes down. Perks was caught out between his team and the enemy base at that point, but Gamers 2 certainly playing that one out smart. Perks not going all that aggressive in that setup. But Smitty J is now in the mid lane, has his teleport available. They're looking to force down another tower. And you can see that Perks Jace, we saw yesterday how much it kept Gamers 2 in the game against Mouse. This time, it's setting them up the advantages in this game to maybe look for a win for themselves.
That being said, Galio is actually ahead in farm against Smitty in the top lane.
And Smitty's spending a lot of time out of lane right now.
Yeah. Doing a lot of roaming. Has the teleport as well, plus the flash, so he can now spend some time in the top lane and be fairly happy that he can get into a fight.
And it's not even like in a melee versus melee matchup that Galio's all that bad. Ooh,
Insect
wow.
into the Idol of Duran. Talk about comboing that perfectly onto Gilius, and Sayo will just poke him to death with the Sand Soldier. That was a fantastic setup from Mouse.
Nice little combo, and if we see that kind of combo on somebody like a Jace, who you know, is going to get locked down very easily in that setup, that may very well really undo Gamers 2. It's a very tricky thing to orchestrate, but you can see it worked once. No reason it can't work again. Yeah,
well, we've really been thinking about the Idol of Durand as like a team fight thing, but as like a knock someone into your team and keep them CC'd with like a Sayo Emperor's Divide or something like that, looking very good for the team of Mouse. Now, seeing what they were looking for with this composition.
And you know, one thing I actually feel like Gamers 2 just as... I don't want to generalize all that much, because there are different players when it comes to Perks and Jesse compared to their spring roster, but certainly Gamers 2 are less comfortable when their opponents are playing unorthodox compositions. Because, as we said, Mao's only 2 wins in spring were against Gamers 2 when they played really obscure compositions with Gangplank with a Teemo. I'm not going to say Galio is along the same lines, because I actually don't feel like he's particularly bad in this game. Again, he's up in farm. Farming was never particularly his difficult point in a melee matchup anyway. And at this point, they have a composition that has very clear goals. It's just, can Gamers 2 actually get their poke composition running in time to stop this Mouse setup?
Well, Gamers 2 use the on the hunt there, using their composition to take the turret, but that's a lot of everything really used to try and get the kill into Sayo. He's dropped very low though. Inero has been tagged up by the rockets. Smitty J may flash over the wall for the kill combo. He looks for it. The Flame Spitter gets him on the edge of the cone, and Inero is not able to get away. He actually didn't think that was enough damage because he had the heal.
Welcome to Challenger Series, Inero. This is Smitty J's house, seemingly, as Gamers 2 are now going to ramp things up, pushing down the middle turret as well. This is one of the real strengths of this composition, is just how fast turrets are going to die. Mountain, pops his ult late.
Gets the snare down. Away. Dan and Sayo here to defend the turret. That's a lot of damage from the Sand Soldier. Looking for the conquering stance, lands it onto Gilius, gets to slow down. Dan, though, will get obliterated by Gilius as he comes in. Emperor's Divide to slam him against the wall. Follows up with a Sand Shoulder damage, and the 2 Sand Shoulders made a free. Will actually pick up the kill there. Idle Duran on the Smitty J, locks him in place, lines up a perfect headbutt in from Mountain, back from the grave. He's there to take down the kill. That's a 2-1 underneath that turret, and Gamers2 didn't quite finish off that turret right there in the mid lane.
Beansu with these Idol of Durans is setting up individual kills again and again and again, and that was kind of the counter engage that Mouse required as Smitty J came in at an awkward angle, and now it's Mouse that are pushing the turret down. That mid turret did not fall in favor of Gamers2, and Mouse are going to take one for themselves.
Oh. First tower out to the team.
Yeah, and now they put up the Sun Disc as well. That's going to really make it tough for Gamers2 for the next couple of moments to actually push out of their base and establish vision control for this dragon that's coming up. I mean, saying that they already have a lot of wards in the lower side jungle, so they don't need to establish all that much more vision control than they've already got.
It's also going to say the Sun Disc is going to survive for approximately 5 seconds. There it goes.
There it goes.
Let's take a look at that engage once again, or rather that counter engage from Mouse.
Yeah, so this is Mountain at first under the turret. It pops his ult late, but it's fairly safe for him at that point. He knows as soon as he's behind the turret with the ult running, he's not going to get caught out. Big double chunk onto Jesse and Heaver, forces them back away from the turret. And look at Smitty J and the way he's coming into this. If he comes down and in through the side, he just groups with his team and is fine. But he wants this equalizer to cut Sayo off, but is not banking on the Idol of Duran, just catching him as he comes around the corner. And Smitty J ends up pretty much in no man's land under the enemy turret.
Yeah, Mountain had a really nice flash headbutt as well just to secure that kill, but there comes the Soul Flare. Pop. Just zones them away, and Nero is taking point currently. Don't really want to be too far in front of your team. The crab has been picked up there by Mouse, and Mouse will be aggressing onto this dragon area. Gilius is heading up with his team, just trying to secure this vision right now. Beansu laying down the harass. Speaking of Beansu, interesting in his item, but has picked up the Abyssal Scepter, so got a little bit of AP, a little bit of magic resist, basically everything Galio wants in life.
Yes, Galio really does want that magic resist.
Oh.
Just as a reminder to people that maybe don't see Galio all that much, Galio's passive runic skin converts 50% of his magic resist into ability power, so it just makes it more viable to just build MR and then just have a lot of damage.
Yeah, think Rammus, but a gargoyle.
No points.
Oh, Gilius though might score some points here. Beansu does get CC'd up, but he'll CC the enemy team as well. Comes in for the combo, but Dan also goes down. Mountain now comes into the fight. Big Emperor's Divide onto 3 players, but it's not enough damage to really net them the fight. Double kill comes in for Perks. Lands the Shock Blast, looking for another kill into Mountain, and will land it with the 2 Disguise. Gets himself the triple kill. A 5-for-1 over to Gamers2, getting so far ahead in that fight, and the Dragon will go over to them.
Once again, Perks is on such a tear here for his team, and honestly, that setup didn't look all that bad out of Gamers2. When you look at the positioning, the Ash Arrow actually misses in the beginning of that fight, as I was saying. It's actually Mouse that didn't quite get the setup they were looking for. Beansu is forced to ult 2 people. It's Smitty J and Gilius, which leaves Jesse and Perks on the side to just deal as much damage as they need. That ult has to start clipping some of the more consistent damage dealers in these fights. At that point, Inero cannot kite back on his own, and it's left to just Mountain to fall for Perks.
There's a lot of time in that fight as well where Sayo was not dealing damage, and at the time where he was like, I can deal damage, he jumped in on very low HP and died very quickly. But if Beansu lands more ultimates like that, because he also landed on 3 people, just on the very edge we actually had Heaver also being CC'd up by that. It just needs Sayo and Inero to be laying down that damage, but they're also zoned away. So in theory, it's not too bad for Mouse, but in execution, Gamers2 eventually won out.
That's the thing, is this is a very difficult comp to execute from Mouse. Just because there are so many different moving parts that if they don't hit the right targets, it's so difficult to actually take a team fight. Because, as we said, itemizing MR against predominantly AD champions from the AD carry role and mid lane means that if Beansu doesn't catch one of them, he's just at the mercy of getting poked for the entire team fight. And you said it pretty well, that if Sayo and Nero aren't returning fire with that damage on the people that are inside the Idol of Durand, they're never going to have a numbers advantage.
That is a lot of damage in a very short amount of time, and the Teller will chase Dan down. Sayo comes in with a 3-man Emperor's Divide looking for the wombo combo. Everyone is being gifted over to a Nero to finish off, but the Shock Blast doesn't quite hit him. Smitty J, though, is there to wipe him up, though. Gilius is trying to get away from this fight. Will activate the Happy Hour, and Sayo comes in with the soldiers trying to get the kill there. Mounted with the combo into the Idol of Durand. Smitty J, his worst enemy in this game, has been his ultimates from Galio. A 3-for-2 overall, an extremely messy fight.
A very messy fight, but great re-engage. Mountain once again proving his worth. Ooh, you can see how much damage Perks is really starting to output. And, you can see Mountain just really showing his worth in this game with these counter engages. He's just allowing Mouse to hold on far longer than they should do with this kind of gold disparity.
And Perks again with this Jace is the member that is doing so much work. This time with Jesse on the Civ, it has landed them, or netted them a good couple engages. Heaver as well has been pulling his weight in the bottom lane. Oh, onto the Azir as well with a Shock Blast. One more would send him down for the kill. But Heaver has picked up a Medjais. Very nice.
So this was that team fight once again. Dan just gets completely obliterated to start this one off. Even gets locked down by the by the crowd control that follows. The Ash Arrow landed onto Gilius at this point, but great ult out of Sayu gets both carries and Heaver at this situation. It's a little unfortunate that Enero is the only one there dealing a lot of damage, but does sidestep the Shock Blast that comes out. Binsu even coming down from the top as well. Smitty J, we saw it on the side of his screen the first time, did manage to come in, pick up Enero, and met his unfortunate end once again to the Idol of Durand. That's I think that's the third one this game that Smitty J has eaten, and pretty much just been picked off for.
Yeah, not fun. But Dan clearing up this ward. Heaver continuing to place down wards, just being a distraction while the rest of his team takes the Baron. Has this been warded up by Miles? Yes, it has been. The soldiers come over the wall. The Ash Arrow will fly right onto Jesse. Perfect spell shield will actually stop the entire stun. But the aggression from Miles will force Games 2 away from the Baron. It was a nice try while Heaver was playing possum, but Miles did read it out.
Yeah, at this point, Perks has reached quite an important spike. He now has level 6. Which is a weird thing still to say, in both Shock Blast and Hypercharge. So it means his poke and his tower pushing is going to be doing so much damage overall. I mean, just in general, now that Hypercharge has been maxed up, it means he's just doing so much added damage at full attack speed. 358 damage per attack on that Hypercharge. At 2.5 attack speed is going to shred through turrets very quickly.
It's actually interesting because at max rank, which is now rank 6 on Perks, you get an extra 40 damage from your Shock Blast. So as you scale later into the game, you actually have, in terms of scaling, like another point in the game where you're a little bit stronger. Right. Where you'd otherwise maybe plateau. But yeah, interesting stuff. Heaver, though, has been caught up by Sayo. Looks for the engage there with the shifting sands. Perks will put another Shock Blast onto Binsu. Binsu did go back to base and purchase a bunch of armor items, the Ninja Tabe and the Glacial Shroud, but it's not quite enough to block a lot of that damage. Yeah. Perks are still tearing through it.
The Tabe is not going to help against the Shock Blasts, and the Glacial Shroud is such a tiny amount of armor just overall that you can see it too. And Binsu, who Galio is kind of like listed as a tank. I would more call him an off-tank rather than anything. You kind of do need the Bulwark on you to start giving you health back. Yeah. But you can see just 2 poke Qs from Jace is enough to force him all the way back. I don't think they can actually engage off this.
Oh, Smitty, though, goes very deep into the tower and has now been taken down. The flash, the 5-fan Galio ultimate. How much work will it do? Quite a lot, apparently. And Sayo lands a big Emperor's Divide. Binsu comes into the fight just to follow up with a Resolute Smite. But that was a 3-for-2 overall. It looked fancy, but overall didn't do all that much.
Nobody expects the flash Galio ult to catch quite that many people. You can see exactly how that one went down. Perks instantly hit his cleanse and backed himself away to get damage down, but I want to see this again, because how much reaction time did they have on this Galio coming in? This was the Ash Arrow that I wasn't sure that Mouse could actually engage from, as Smitty J has already shoved them away. Galio coming into the fight has the added movement speed from his E, catches all of them. Perks, there's the cleanse coming out, and Sayu, really nice Emperor's Divide back into the fight, but look at Perks, untouched, is able to just be enough of a presence for Beansu to have to back away here as well. It is all on that Cleanse Summoner being available that we talked about coming out of Champion Select.
Yeah, otherwise that would have been a whitewash for Mouse. It would not have been a 3-for-2 coming out the back of that fight. Dragon now goes over to Mouse. That will be the second for them, third of the game. Going over to the red team. Inero is very dead. Perks
He's down.
Got him with a Shock Blast and a single Hammer Form combo, and that was enough to kill Ash.
So one problem that Mouse are going to have is that engage kind of style is not going to be enough to catch Gamers 2, or at least to kill Perks, because the cooldown on Cleanse is about 190 seconds, and the flash cooldown is considerably longer than that. So it means that you can bank on every time Galio can flash ult, the Cleanse should be available. So they have to somehow burn the Cleanse early, and now that the Baron has gone over to G2, their poke gets even more difficult to deal with. So I don't see many situations where Perks' Cleanse is going to get blown when the flash is going to be available. Beansu's ult is now up, so he has a third of the Cleanse cooldown to try and make it work for himself.
Oh, Gamers 2 have read that Dan was in the bush. He'll be flashing away. Beansu lands the ultimate onto 3 players once again, but he'll get chunked out himself. The kill goes on to Jesse, but they haven't found the golden target that is Perks, and the poke will continue to rain down.
Beansu is just throwing himself at carries, trading 1 for 1. And that is going to work for a while now, and it's actually going to be enough to force Gamers 2 to back away. It's not the worst trade in the world when you look at it. Beansu for Jesse is also going to be one of the bigger parts of pushing towers down and relying on that Sivir damage. This game is a very intriguing one. Just overall, very different playstyle from what we've seen before. But honestly, Gamers 2 is a good read on Dan being in that bush.
I wonder where Lee Sin is. Found him.
There he is. Got him. And the Idol of Duran to follow up. Look at how much damage that dealt to Hiva, though. That is not a weak ability by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, yeah. It does a lot of damage if it's fully channeled now. It's just about landing it on more people and the vital targets. And Perks, speaking of his cleanse, it is now up, so even if he gets caught in it, he can walk on out. Even has the flash just in case. So if they can just get him, if they can just kill Perks. But I say that, but yesterday they tunnel visioned on Perks and then got punished by Gamers 2, so we'll see. But Sayo over the wall, aggressive play onto 3 members, but here comes a teleport by Smitty. I think the Emperor is gonna go down here. We'll receive a drink from Gilius to send him to the graveyard for now. 1-0. This should be the top turret now going over to Gamers 2.
Yeah, it will be, because Sayo is such a big second half to the Idol of Duran follow-up. They need the Azir damage there, so they have to concede this one. Now they have to concede likely the next one. It's on the Shock Blasts. Perks gets Beansu, takes about a quarter of his health away. Maybe a little bit more, actually. Man, that is hurting him. Man, he's down to half health, just off 1 Shock Blast and a little bit more damage. Ooh. Man! Ooh, Perks is having a good week on Jace.
Turns out Jace is pretty strong. It turns out playing meta is also pretty strong that Gamers 2 are finding out right now, other than the Karma coming in. Top tower is going down incredibly quickly. Here comes the Ash Arrow onto Jesse, looking for the damage from Sayo. Is it enough? Gets him down. Idol Durand onto 3 players. Once again, is it enough though? Here comes the Equalizer. 3-man knockup in from Mountain. He'll be going down for the CC. Is it enough for his carries to deal the damage though? Sayo picks up another one, looking for another onto Smitty J to flash over the wall. Inero, aggressive flash, looks for the volley, doesn't connect it. Emperor of the Sands comes out with another Conquering Sands to pick up his triple. That was a 3-for-1, but Mouse do lose their inhibitor turret.
Oh, Mouse are just digging deep to hold on to this game. They lose the objective, just about take the fight for themselves, and now can look to regroup. The problem is they can't actually get out on the map to do all that much more, but Sayu is holding this game for as much as they possibly can. Jesse gets hit by this ult. I don't think he was actually expecting to take that. I would have assumed that the spell shield would have come out. At this point, Binsu has already fallen in the fight, and Perks dropping is the big factor in this. Sayu still had enough health, still had enough damage after his missed position earlier to come back to this fight and end up taking a triple kill for himself. And Mouse, maybe this is back on for them. Maybe.
Maybe. Very importantly in that last fight as well, Perks cleansed out of the Ardor of Durand and Thundering blowed him before he got the full channel off. So it meant that the full damage didn't go onto 3 players.
Right.
And had it done so, all those 3 players you saw running away at the end would have already been dead.
Yeah, it could have been even better. I mean, that's the one thing now that Mouse are going to have is it's going to be significantly more difficult to kill Binsu the longer this game goes on. Just in the sense that Binsu is going to get more itemization. It's a lot more precarious of a team fight. Now, this is a good play out of Gamers 2. They're forcing the open inhib. They recognize that Mouse are looking to extend their dragon lead when it comes up, so are likely down on the bottom side of the map. They spotted them on wards as well, so now you drag them away from the area of the map where they have their advantage up to their weaker area and try and pressure out the turret, because again, Mouse can't really forego this inhibitor. They have to have somebody here to deal with the rest of the Gamers 2 lineup.
Asharo off the map. So that's going to be down for a while now. And now is kind of a good opportunity for Gamers to potentially to engage, and they have no shortage of ways to get into a fight with the Sivir ultimate. And this is going to be difficult, especially the Shock Blast keeps softening up the Mouse target. Dragon is going to be up in around 7 seconds, Baron in just under 2 minutes. Mouse clinging on for dear life as they continue to take Shock Blast. That one wasn't quite in range, but Perks will be laying them down every 10 seconds or so.
Interesting enough, so I must admit, I am no Galio expert. Only 2 points in Bulwark, which this late into the game I would expect maybe a couple more. Just for the added survivability.
Yeah.
I mean, remember the defensive mastery tree was changed, but Sayu...
Gilius has found him, lands the perfect combo. There comes the ultimate in from Sayu as his last dying wish, but the ultimate from Binsu connects onto many targets from Gamers 2, but this time there is no carry to follow up with the damage, as Sayu has already gone down. Another great Shock Blast in from Perks will be the double kill of that fight, and just like that, Gamers 2 are looking for the win.
Oh, it was so close for Mouse on these last couple of team fights, but Gamers 2 just having too much damage from the poke and the siege. They're going to tank up the Nexus turrets for now. They will be joined by minions fairly shortly to close this one out. Yeah,
Mountain, not much he can do about this one. Gamers 2 now come in with this win over Mouse. A very hard-fought victory 32 minutes into this game. They managed to bypass that. Galio utilizes composition extremely well and take home the win.
Gamers 2, they're back on track. This is perhaps the kind of style that really benefits Gamers 2 when you look at them playing pretty much a cutting-edge meta kind of composition with the amount of poke they had there. Mixing in the Karma as well, something a little new, something we haven't seen that much, but perhaps we were kind of anticipating. And on the other side of the rift, facing down some real unorthodox setups when it comes to team fighting from Mouse.
Yeah, I would like to see more of these type of compositions from Mouse as well, because I do not think that the Galio was bad. I don't think the Ashe was bad. I don't think the composition as a whole was bad. It was just tiny mistakes, tiny advantages that Gamers 2 picked up throughout that game that eventually led to the win. Because overall, as an idea, as a strategy, very good. In terms of the execution, obviously, is very difficult. But if they can sharpen that up, I think that can actually be extremely solid as the meta shifts.
Binsu got some surprisingly good ults.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, realistically, he was hitting 3 or 4 people multiple times.
Even without flash, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, I don't dislike the Galio. I think it had its effect. I think it showed promise as well. Difficult to work around as a team, though. That's really the key thing. And Mouse, they had some fights where it worked really well. Heavy engaged. Then you get Sayu in there after the Ash Arrow with the Azir ultimate. I could see what they wanted to do. And it did work a couple of times. But Gamers 2 just had such a consistent strategy and played it pretty well themselves.
Yeah, whereas like the Jace is always going to scale, whereas the Galio damage was starting to peter off. But we are going to take a look at one of the replays out of that game. It was Gamers 2 with the 18-minute dragon fight and the triple for Perks.
Yeah, so this, again, Binsu catches 2 people, but the damage was being done out on the outer rim of this fight by the rest of Gamers 2. And it just meant that nobody on Mouse could really stand up against Perks, and very similar to yesterday, in yesterday's game where Perks just had a great performance yesterday on Jace. Funnily enough, he had a great performance today on Jace as well. 8, 3, and 11 overall today on Jace. And I mean, Perks was a new addition to Gamers 2. There was a lot of praise on Perks coming into this split. He certainly seems to be living up to it.
Yeah, this time was actually rewarded with a win today on Jace. Yesterday he did a lot to keep his team in the game, but this time eventually managed to get there city. But yeah, pretty good from Perks so far. We saw his Vlad. I would like to see more playmakers like Jace, people champions which can make a very big impact on the game by themselves. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he picks up Varus or whether he does adopt the Ezreal as well.
Yeah, Ezreal, still haven't seen him yet. Still no Runeglaive.
I mean, I know he's a solo queue stomp champion right now. He deals so much damage. So yeah, anybody wanting to kind of maybe hit solo queue, grab that Ezreal, or ban it. If you're not a mid lane player, ban it. Because that is annoying when you half health people with 2 items. But just in general,
sounds like Jace.
The 5.12 changes we saw here were kind of towards what we were expecting, but with a few more surprises. We were expecting a bit more split push, but there was a heavy prioritization on Irelia in this setup. We talked a little bit about how we expect that to be a lot to do with the players, but certainly for the first couple of games of 5.12, it seems like a slightly more refined version of 5.11, just a couple of tweaks here and there. A couple of champions fall down, a couple of champions have risen back up.
Yeah, I mean, overall, we're still seeing the poke compositions. Didn't see a whole lot of it in Challenger, but I think when we look at the top levels of play, it's still going to be a thing.
Yeah.
We are going to start seeing counters now with, like, split pushes now coming out. Like, I think Irelia was very specific to the fact we have so many Irelia players, but again, other champions which can split push, people wave clear as well. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to see how the meta is now shifting into different playstyles.
Yeah, I completely agree. Maybe we'll see more Galio. Maybe we'll see more Karma.
Yeah.
Or Braum. It's so weird that we talked about all 3 of them today, which obviously people aren't really going to care about that we talked about it, but I am really confused by how that happened. But it's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Yeah, I'd like to see more Karma as well, but I wonder if that's just a Heaver special. Either way, now 2 weeks of the round robin have been played out, so let's take a look at those standings once again. So right now, Team Dignitas EU have separated from the rest of the teams and are now 4-0. Mouse Esports and Gamers 2 after that game now share the next place with 3-1. Dinal Esports are just behind them, and Nihilo and Overclock is still yet to get a win.
Still yet to get on the board themselves, but make sure you join us again next week. Maybe we'll see them get their first win on the board, because we'll be breaking down the action from Tuesday's games and starting off Wednesday, this time with Mouse versus Team Dignitas EU.
And right after that, it is Nihilo up against Gamers 2, and they'll be concluding the day with Overclockers challenging Denial. That may be a difficult one. The action restarts at 1800 CEST.
Now, if you missed any of the action from today or want to catch the Tuesday games in full, check out the VODs Hub over on lolesports.com.
And if EUCS didn't sate your league hunger, tune in again at 12 AM CET or 3 PM Pacific time for Prime Time League.
And if, like Tam Kent, you have a devouring appetite for some League of Legends, even more League of Legends, Freak and Zyrene are going to be bringing you week 2 of the North American Challenger Series Summer Split, just a little bit after PTL.
Yeah, Renegades are looking super good over there, Stress. But that does it for week 2 of the European Challenger Series. So from myself, Stress, and the Challenger broadcast team, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next Wednesday. Knocked up, gets knocked up again. Bounty Castle, it's free for you, Noxiac, and Warlight will come in with the last couple of autos and the explosive charge. And Impaler, though, in the jungle, gets hit against the wall, finds Crazy Caps instead, he'll take that one, and goes after him with the Foxfires, will flash away from the gravity field and the burst. Condi Sound off to the left-hand side, Kubon here to interrupt them, but he's there by himself at the moment. We'll get the stun down onto 3 players, in from the parallel convergence, but not before Obvious will go down for first blood over to Kubon. Meanwhile, Team Dignitas EU are actually taking the Dragon as well. It's a question of whether Overclockers can punch these two members who've gone into the top lane. They're going to try and do so. Kuban's already dropping low, though. We'll have to flash away. We'll get the heal up. Tenko comes in with the last breath, turned around the wind wall. The recalls are coming in from Gamers too. They're going to see Mountain as he gets out of the bush. The flash into the free man knockup. This could very well be first blood, and it's going to be a lot of kills going down. First blood over to the Ashe, though, onto a Nero, and Smitty J is now under attack. A good resolute smite onto Heaver and Jesse, but now here comes the Jace as well onto a Nero. He's just standing there trying to put down as much damage as he can onto Smitty.